Imihla yonke ngisebenzela ukuthi nalendlile angisebenzelani na angisebenzelani na angisebenzelani na angisebenzelani na sifocus nexit siyema taxi siyema isebenzile sibuye usuku free awayandanda aswanela landile imihla yonke ngisebenzela ukuthi nalendlile angisebenzelani na angisebenzelani na angisebenzelani na angisebenzelani na avoso wakho onsebenze levajazwe igama lakho avoso wakho onsebenze levajazwe igama lakho athela umoya oyingcwele levajazwe igama lakho athela umoya oyingcwele levajazwe igama lakho angisebenzelani na angisebenzelani na angisebenzelani na angisebenzelani na Iso va fet telefonega la va fet os funana nalo akwenzeka kanjani ukuthi umntwana mazalwe ngalutho angeke bafethu ngeke bafetha ikinto enjalo angithi mama kamarika no permita ngefa kwendlu ungabe kuyangami mama ngapempema naye angithi mama kamarika no permita
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to the first of our resource events. I am Keisha Thompson. I'm the Senior Learning Programme Officer. A very wordy title there. You are very welcome to switch on your videos and join me so that I'm not alone, but just bear in mind that we are recording this session, so if you would prefer not to be caught on our video, that's completely fine for you to leave your videos off. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the learning programme, and then I'm going to introduce our lovely speakers today. If at any point you'd like to ask a question, please feel free to use the chat box, or you can unmute yourself. This is a very close, intimate group, and I want to make sure that we really do have a good chat and we're not just listening to me waffling away. No one needs that. Okay, so just to give you a bit of background, I'm based in Manchester. I'm an artist and a producer, but I'm working for the World Reimagined with a specific focus on the education programme. I've also got a background as a maths teacher. So I kind of brought all of those skills to this role, to this project, which I am extremely passionate about. It's been a great privilege to be a part of the team working on a big program that's going to feature some fabulous art and artists this summer across the country. So the World Reimagined is going to take the form of 7 public sculptures across the country in various cities, getting us all to think about the concept of racial equality, of racial justice. What does that look like? How can we acknowledge that this is a joint history? How can we grapple with this very difficult conversation and come to a place that feels a bit more peaceful, malleable, and that there's agency there and there's space for us to reimagine our future together. That's what the project is about in general. There are loads of different strands to it, a lot of community engagement. It's going to be huge. We've got some fabulous artists associated with us, such as the amazing Turner Prize nominated Yinka Shonabare, who designed our globe structure. That's the featuring sculpture for the whole programme. Labaina Hameed, Nicola Green, yeah, so loads of amazing artists. But today's session and my events are specifically about the schools program, the education program. How do we get young people involved? How do we connect with teachers? How do we make sure that the teachers that are in our classrooms feel like leaders and can see how this program can tap into their pedagogy, impacts their curriculum, their school improvement plans, and really embed itself in the culture so that there is true legacy there for the teachers and also for the young people that also get a chance to engage with our fabulous resources. So that's enough of me. What I'm going to do now is get lovely Mabel, who is our learning officer at the World Reimagined, to play our trailer. It's just 4 minutes long, and I'll give you a full lowdown of the programme, all the different aspects, and then we'll come back to me and I'll tell you a little bit more about some of our opportunities that have got some deadlines coming up fast and furious. I'm just going to let someone in. And then we'll start to hear from our speakers. So Mabel, are you able to share your screen and play the trailer, s'il vous plaît?
Calling all teachers and educators. Do you want to inspire and empower your school community to make racial justice a reality? With sculpture trails in cities across the UK from August to October 2022, featuring works from internationally renowned artists, including our founding artist, Yinka Shonabare, the World Reimagined is working to become the largest art education project for racial justice in the UK. We'd love your school and your students to be a part of it. The World Reimagined Learning Programme offers classroom resources and teacher CPD, all leading to creative expression that will be featured in our national programme. Our classroom resources offer a creative and experiential journey for your young people along the 9 themes of the World Reimagined's journey of discovery, from Mother Africa to Reimagine the Future. They've been created with wonderful contributors like Baroness Floella Benjamin, Professor Kehinde Andrews, and cast members of the West End's Hamilton. Using an arts-based learning approach, the resources build both understanding of the subject and the 5 C's: compassion, curiosity, courage, connection, and critical thinking. For Key Stages 1 and 2, the focus is on the theme of Mother Africa, while for secondary schools, colleges, and alternative settings, the resources cover all 9 themes. The resources are adaptable, modular, and differentiated, and include ready-to-use lesson plans that can be flexibly used across the curriculum, in particular in connection to history, art, literacy, and PSHE. Alongside the resources we use in the classroom, you will be able to access our Leadership in Teaching offer, which supports teachers both to deliver the resources and confidently step into their role as leaders in your school community, in how to engage on racial justice issues. With modules that include how to understand power and privilege, managing breakthrough dialogue, and anti-racism training, this can be a meaningful part of any school improvement plan, supporting you with intent, implementation, and impact. The Poetic programme leads to young people expressing their creativity through poetry and the spoken word, which we can share on our platforms and beyond. It's free and available to all schools across the country. The Globe programme sees schools design their own smaller globe sculptures that will then feature in local communities during the World Reimagined, before being returned to the school at the end of the campaign as an enduring legacy. Teachers from participating schools also access in-person CPD in our host cities and additional support on how to transform learning into a globe design. The Globe programme costs £850 plus VAT and is available to schools across our host and learning cities: Birmingham, Bristol, Greater Manchester, Leeds, Leicester, Liverpool City Region, London and Swansea. There are also bursaries and artist residencies available. We hope your young people and your school will take part in the World Reimagined, which we're building as a vibrant project that will help us all better understand and build a deeper sense of pride in what it means to be British. It begins with facing and considering and processing our shared history together. If we do that, we have the opportunity to truly see each other, to acknowledge so much pain, to honour those who lived, to celebrate those that inspire, to become comfortable with the complexity of our history, and to act from love and compassion and respect for one another. That's the journey we hope young people as agents of change, teachers as racial justice leaders, and schools as vital communities will go on. Because our future is what we choose to make it. So let's reimagine what is possible together.
Right,
In
thank
2022,
you. Yes, we can just stop sharing. Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Hi, Charlene. So before we get to speaking to Charlene, who is a primary school teacher, I'll let her introduce herself in a second, but she's a primary school teacher who was one of the contributors to developing the resources. I just want to share with you all in the chat a link to our bursary sign-up form, because the deadline is Monday. So any school that is in one of the host cities that was listed in the trailer, but I can just say it again now. So it's Birmingham, Bristol, Greater Manchester, Leeds, Leicester, Liverpool, London and Swansea. Any school that is in one of those cities, there's an opportunity for you to receive a bursary, but we just need you to sign up via that form. So it might be that you are in one of those schools or you know a school. So we'd really love for you to share that, because we want to be able to give that opportunity to as many schools as possible. So that's in the chat, that link there. Also, there's an artist residency offer. The deadline is exactly the same. That's a slightly different offer in that you get to do the Globe programme completely subsidised by bursary, but then you also get an artist coming into your school, doing some extra curricular lessons with you, doing some sessions with your staff, some CPD, and then they'll stay for an extra term. So from October till December, this year and really come up with something that feels a bit more bespoke, come up with a toolkit, an action plan, something that feeds into all of your frameworks that are already there, but creates that synergy so that there's real legacy and it's not just a kind of helicopter moment with this project. So before we jump over to Charlene, we just thought it made sense to give you a little look at the resources if you've not had a chance. We're super, super excited with the way that they look right now. We were able to preview just a little flavour of what is to come in March when we release all of them. So we've got examples of the primary school resources, which focuses on the Mother Africa module. We've got an example of the secondary resource. Again, we've gone for the Mother Africa in the preview, and then there's also some supporting documents there. So you can see if we just scroll down that the way that the resources work is that we have a PDF, which is, it contains the lesson plans, so that you can see the background information, the rationale, how we think that this fits together as a scheme of work, and when what the individual lessons are, and then there's kind of step-by-step guide for each activity. And then the PowerPoint is what you would put on in the classroom, ready to go. There are worksheets, everything's there ready for you to just use in front of your young people. And then we've also got some supporting documents. One of them is a wellbeing document, and I really encourage you to look at that, because that's getting you to think about the things that you may need to prepare yourself for and address before getting into this topic. As we know, speaking about racial justice is not always going to be an easy topic. If you just go back, Mabel, sorry, on that same page, on the resources page, on the PDF that you were on. Yeah, so you go back and scroll down. Yeah, that's the, there we go. So that's the supporting document that I was talking about. So that signposts you to some resources, some exercises that will help you and also help your young people when doing this work. We know that there are different aspects that we need to consider when bringing up the topic of race. It might be that you're in a school that's predominantly white and there's only a few students who are Black, Asian, or from ethnic minorities, and you might need to consider how they will experience those lessons. Might it be that you have to create a breakout space for them? Might it be that you have to signpost them to some extra materials so that they feel supported? So that's what this document is all about. So I really encourage you to check that out and share it with other people. Yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. I'm going to hand over now. We're going to jump over and get talking. So I'm just going to spotlight myself and spotlight you as well, Charlene. Would you like to unmute and introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody who's here on the
Hi.
call. My name is Charlene. I am a primary school teacher, as Keisha's already said. I work at a primary school in Manchester, inner city primary school. It has it's described as a diverse school, but in actual fact, 98% of our pupils are from an Asian background, South Asian specifically. So I think a resource like this would be brilliant for a school like mine. I was approached to work on the project by one of my colleagues who had already been approached by Keisha, and he just felt I would be better suited to the role or the support that was needed for this. So I agreed. And yeah, I really enjoyed, actually, I really enjoyed exploring the materials and looking at all the content and the ideas and the way that they were to be delivered into primary schools. And I did feel when I first looked at them, they needed some editing in terms of making it kind of pitched correctly for primary schools. And that's where I got involved.
Yeah, and it was lovely to work with you. I remember you were showing us some ideas, and there was a really great rainbow table at one point. So it was all very visual.
Color primary, colourful, bright.
Yeah, no, it was great, because when I started this role at the end of October, that was something that was immediately apparent to me when I was looking at the resources in the state that they were in when I joined because the ideas were there, it was all great, but I was like, this doesn't feel like it comes from a teacher. I need a teacher to sink their teeth into this and say, this is not going to work, or this is going to work in the classroom, because that's what we wanted. Could you just flesh that out a bit more? What is it that we really need to consider when we're in the classroom? If you could think of like 3 top tips in terms of using these resources and making the most of them, what are the things that you think we really need to think about to make these resources have the right impact?
I think what you said actually just a minute ago with regards to the additional resources that teachers can use, a little bit of pre-preparation is necessary. And I think obviously all teachers are aware of that. You can't just sort of turn up, rock up and deliver a lesson. I think any educator or teacher who's going to use the resources should definitely read through the material and familiarise themselves with any language that they're not familiar with. Any sort of examples of customs or activities that are part of the learning programme, familiarise yourself with them and do a little bit extra research as well. I think I had an advantage just because of my background and my lived experiences, that I was able to look at the resources, pick them up and know exactly what needed to be changed, what would work, what wouldn't. But if you haven't had a lived experience such as mine as a Black teacher or as a Black woman, then there may be things that are unfamiliar to you. So I would definitely advise pre-reading and language as well, and pronunciation of words. Again, like you said, Keisha, if you've got pupils in your class who are from a Black or Asian background, you want to make sure you're delivering the sessions in a way that isn't going to offend or upset anybody as well. And so just that little bit of pre-preparation will make a huge difference to the effectiveness of the learning and their learning outcomes. Sorry, what else? What else was your question? Sorry.
I just said 3 tips, really. So if there's an extra thing you want to go
so pre-preparation, a bit of a pupil voice as well. After the session has finished as well, ask them, get their honest and true opinions. Try and make the pupils feel as comfortable as possible about sharing their ideas and their thoughts as well. Again, some of the subject matter, I'm not quite sure for secondary, but some of the content may be a bit uncomfortable for pupils, or it might be a trigger point for some. So I would say definitely allowing the pupils to freely express themselves and allow them that safe space, and make it fun and enjoyable. We want learning to be exciting. We want them to look at Mother Africa as a project and think, wow, this amazing continent. That to me is what we want out of it, really, and to sort of move away from the perception of Africa that we already have, which tends to be poverty, and suffering and trauma, and that's not what this project is about. So I think it would make a huge impact if educators and teachers came out with a positive mindset and looking at Africa as a rich and diverse continent and not as a poverty-stricken, it's not all doom and gloom. So yeah, your mindset and how you come into it will kind of determine the outcome as well of how the lesson is delivered.
Great, thank you. So just to latch on to what you just said there, we do provide a glossary. So there's a glossary specifically to the primary school resources and a glossary for the secondary. So that is your reference point to go and check out some of those words, as Charlene mentioned. If they're not familiar to you, then we've got a way for you to then go and find out. And also with all of that, you'll do your preparation, but we can make mistakes with anything. When we're teaching anything, we will make mistakes. So please don't go into this with too much trepidation. And I think when you put the effort in and you prepare, as Charlene said, our young people notice that, they feel that, and that is where the respect lies. And if we make it a dialogue, if they're given the space and the voice to bring in their lived experience, their opinions, what they know from their culture, then it will be positive. So just to flag that we've got all of this stuff there that hopefully makes it all comprehensive, but I don't want it to appear that it's daunting. Again, as Charlene said, it needs to feel fun.
Overwhelmed by all the material. Exactly. Don't feel overwhelmed. It's been chunked nicely for you, so just take it one lesson at a time, even if you want to give yourself a brief overview. But when it comes to delivery of it, I would say definitely don't feel overwhelmed by all of the content. Just focus on one lesson at a time.
Amazing. So have we got any questions from anyone that is in the audience? I've got some more questions, but I think it's important that we give space to anyone who's joined us today. Have we got anyone in from primary school? Feel free to unmute or go in the chat.
Hi, sorry. Yeah, I'm from a primary school in Liverpool. I'm teaching reception currently. And I'm not sure if you're aware of the School of Sanctuary that is run in Liverpool. So we've achieved that status, but we're just looking at obviously furthering the experiences of our pupils, because our school, it is quite diverse in the fact that it has a range of pupils from a range of backgrounds. We're very multicultural, but whilst we are diverse and we have, I think there's something like 15 to 20 different languages spoken as mother tongue, it's only quite a small percentage of the school overall. So it's about maybe like 20% of say, I think we're 740 pupils. So it's still quite a small percentage.
Yeah.
So we just really want to enhance our pupils' experiences and just give them as much things to access as we possibly can. And yeah, so that's why. So I was directed to this actually by a parent of a pupil in our school, who we're looking at setting up a focus group with, and setting it up so that parents can come and meet with myself and another representative of, because we're focusing on PSHE, and that's why I'm trying to really draw in this sort of side of PSHE as well, not just your sex education and things, like looking at creating a really diverse and cultural experience for the pupils. So we're thinking about having workshops for our parents to come in and create suggestions of things that they want to hear. So we're just looking at what the program that you're doing offers. It just seems like that's a really good place for us to begin, really, and just to add to what we're already doing, but and just become more conscious of what we're already doing. Because one of the things I found in the primary school setting is that we are doing a lot of the stuff, but a lot of the stuff is through talk, and it's not necessarily if someone was to ask us about it, it's happening, but it would look very different in every class, and there wouldn't be a cohesiveness to it. So something like this might help that little bit of structure,
that consistency. And have something that you can refer to and share. Definitely.
That's the plan anyway.
That's great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
No worries. I hope you've already signed up to register your interest in joining us, and if not, then please do.
Definitely will.
Any questions from anyone? Otherwise, I will jump to my next question. Okay, so.
Sorry, I'm just signing in on the computer because I'm having a bit of a delay. I've got a bit poor connection. It keeps cutting out, so I could hardly hear a lot of what was said just then. I do apologise. I'm just trying to reconnect on the computer and see if that helps.
No problem. Okay, so I'll just see if we've got any other questions for myself at this point, or I can introduce, if possible, we can do a little bit of we can switch it up a bit. If Chantal, are you around? I know you're supposed to be in the second half, but while Charlene's doing that, I'm doing. Yes, okay, so we'll swap Chantal and Charlene. We'll come back to Charlene in a second. So Chantal is a fabulous human being who works as an artist, project manager, and also as a teacher. And she has been spearheading our secondary resources, our secondary school resources. So the resources that we've created for 11 plus learners, the main focus is obviously for secondary, but we want to make it clear that it can apply to college level and it can sit in alternative settings as well. So Chantal, tell us a bit about yourself and why you decided to join this project.
Great. Hi. So as Keisha said, I am an educator, a lover of contemporary African art, project manager, creative director. I'm currently in Ghana working alongside lots of new up and coming contemporary Ghanaian artists and helping them along their way as they kind of navigate the art scene. But I've also been creating the secondary resources for the World Reimagined, which is one of these programs that I just wish was around when I was at school, because it's very creative, it's very comprehensive, and it's also I think very bold and confident in the way that it is tackling lots of big ideas and conversations that sometimes we feel like we need to shy away from, but I think they're things that we should definitely kind of walk into like head on and, you know, and talk about, because they're the things that our children are talking about at home with their parents, with their friends, because it's the kind of things that they are coming into contact with daily, and just in the news and the media, especially now. I think it's really urgent and necessary. So yeah, I just felt really compelled to help with creating some resources for the classroom.
Brilliant, thank you. And what we decided to do with the secondary resources is break each of the 9 themes that go from Mother Africa, go through colonial history, and then take us to the end point of reimagining the future. We know that within a high school setting, subjects are specialised. So we picked out art, history, and literature as our focuses for those secondary resources. So Chantal, what tips, if any, do you have for teachers when thinking about putting what you've created in the classroom? What do they need to consider?
I think definitely spending some time to look at the resources and the actual content and just feeling confident in what's being taught. I think when actually presenting the lessons, engagement and pace are really, really important. There are lots of different activities in there, and obviously I understand as teachers we all kind of present in different ways, so what could be one lesson for one person could end up being 2 or 3 for someone else. So there's no kind of pressure to feel that you need to get through every PowerPoint slide in one lesson. If you get to one activity and that's really creating some really deep conversation, and whilst doing that you think of another activity to kind of keep that going, I would definitely recommend doing that. So I guess flexibility would be like the third thing. So pace, engagement, and flexibility would be my 3 tips.
Brilliant, thank you. Very succinct as well. Have we got any questions from anyone in the audience? Anyone who's from a secondary school? Yeah. Before I get Charlene to join us again. Going once, going twice. Okay.
Hiya, I'm Leslie.
Hi.
Hi, I'm from a secondary school in Bristol. So just to say thank you, it's been really informative. I'm just filling in my bursary application form as you're talking. So thank you. Yeah, I've got no further questions at the moment, but just really appreciating what you're doing tonight. It's really useful.
Oh, great. Thank you for joining us.
That's okay. Thank you.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spotlight Charlene. Look at that, fancy little trio. And I'm going to throw this question out to both of you. I did schedule in a break, but I think what makes sense is if I just do the 2 last questions, we answer them, and then I'll just keep this space open. And if we have any dialogue and things afterwards, then people feel free to stick around. Is that all right? Great.
Yeah.
So The next question I was going to ask you was, do you have a favourite activity or focus based on what you've done so far with the resources, the way that you've engaged with it? We're thinking particularly about the Mother Africa module. Was there a thing that you're like, I'm really excited for this, or I'm really happy that this is going to be in the classroom? Yeah, Charlene, do you want to go first?
Yes. I'm so distracted. Yes, I actually really liked the symbols lesson because it's so easy for a young child, especially 5, 6, 7-year-olds, to link that to what they're familiar with and what they understand. And I think some of this kind of the secondary topics will go over their head. So bringing it down to their level so they can engage with it and really understand it was what I was hoping to achieve by editing them. So for me, the symbols lesson was the most interesting because they're able to express themselves using their bodies, using artwork, and sort of then share what they've taken from it as well. And also having that understanding of the links and how important what's come out of Africa and how important what has come out of Africa has linked clearly to so many other symbols that they see in their everyday life that they probably wouldn't be aware of otherwise. So that for me was one of my favorite modules for them.
Thank you. And Chantal, for you?
I guess for me, one of the activities that I really enjoy and that I've always enjoyed doing with children is the odd one out. I think it's a great activity to open up conversation, and it's one of these activities that you can't really plan for, so putting 3 images on a page and me myself knowing that they link in a certain way, but not knowing how the children are going to be able to interpret that, and just asking them like which one's the odd one out, and there actually being no right or wrong answer, and for them to be able to justify their reasoning. And these are really high level thinking skills that we kind of need children to have, and it opens them up to that in a really like fun and simple way without there having to be too much heavy content. And from that conversation, I mean, there's a lot of lessons within the program that open up like that, to kind of open up the dialogue around a certain topic that they're going to have to tackle later on without you as the teacher having to introduce that. And I just think it allows for the learning to almost be guided by the children. It allows you to do any kind of checks on their prior knowledge without having to directly ask them, what do you know? And for them to feel really daunted about it. And I just love it because kids just say the funniest things. When they're deciding which one's the odd one out, it's always like, oh, great, okay. And then look at that. And then I've got a favorite.
Sorry, I was totally agree. You get so much seeing the odd one out, and the diversity and difference in all of the answers that you get as well can spark lots of debate. So I totally agree with that.
One of the other activities I quite excited about, like I love the art module, definitely all of the art modules, because they introduce the children and I guess the teachers also to a lot of the exciting up and coming contemporary African artists living in the UK, living on the African continent and in the US. And it's really nice to get their name and their work out there, especially for me as a collector and for someone who works with artists. It's really nice to know that these artists are going to be taught in the classroom. But outside of the art, I think an activity which I quite excited about was there's one activity which is based around children becoming copywriters. So it's an English-based activity, literacy-based activity, and they're becoming copywriters for Pan-African restaurants. And I think that's really, really exciting for children to have that idea as a way to use their writing to kind of make something that maybe is really unfamiliar to them just sound really glorious and really amazing. And I think it's a really different way to tackle that idea of elevating and celebrating culture. We're so used to the entertainment industry and the art that we actually forget, like just food is for lots of people is a love language, isn't it? So for children to sit there and then have to think about the best words they could use to kind of describe these foods, which for someone holds so much like tradition and culture and memory and heritage, I think is really, really exciting. That I would love to teach.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's definitely something that has excited me about us developing these resources, is that we've thought it was really key that the young people get to feel challenged and get to engage their critical thinking skills, but also be really creative and have loads of fun at the same time. And I really think the contributions that we've seen from Chantal and Charlene in shaping these resources shows that that is going to happen. So my last question is, can you just tell us about what your experience has been of learning about racial justice, racial equality, your own point of view? What was your experience coming up through school as a young person, but then also as a teacher when you were training? What was the vibe? Charlene, sorry.
For me personally, growing up, I've grown up in Manchester, and I went to an inner city school, which was very diverse anyway. So diverse in terms of race and social standing as well. So we had pupils who obviously grew up on estates, some who were from middle class backgrounds. So for me, my experience probably was quite different to a lot of other Black people, in that I felt quite comfortable coming through the education system in terms of being amongst my peers. And again, because of my own family's background and what I'd been taught by my mother and how interacting with adults and teachers and displaying that in school meant that I had quite, I would say, not stressful experience of school, but I didn't have as many issues as I guess other students would have had based on that. I was able to articulate myself quite well when interacting with adults as well. So that sort of prevented me from, I guess, being labelled as a lot of my friends were labelled in certain ways. I could sort of articulate myself better. Coming up in terms of my job and role here and being the only Black face in my workplace, I always felt like I was an advocate for my race by default, just because for some of my other colleagues, they may not have had personal experiences with other Black women. And so I was always very conscious about how I carried myself, and constantly code switching can be quite draining as well, and having to sort of navigate all those kind of microaggressions and, you know, with a smile on your face. So having this shift, this global shift that we've had now, and resources like this being made that we can now use in schools, really I'm hoping changes the mindset of, as well as educators, the younger generations that are coming up as well, so then they can have, I guess, more positive lived experiences. I'm sure Chantal's experience might have been a lot different to mine depending where she's from, but for me, I can say I didn't always feel like I was seen in school by a lot of teachers, but because of the background that I've come from, I was able to go in there with confidence and feel like I know I can do this and I will do this, regardless of your perception of me. And I'm hoping that resources like this and the teaching and delivering that we give, we can instill some of that into the young children coming up as well, that are going to grow up and obviously then go on and lead the world in future. So yeah, that's kind of mashed up experience of what I experienced in school. So.
Yeah, thank you. And Chantal?
Waffling.
Yeah, so I schooled in London, well, in the suburbs. In my primary school, it wasn't that diverse, and there wasn't any teaching about, you know, the cultures of the children in the school. The curriculum was very much followed through. So history was, you know, your Romans, your Greeks, and just all the traditional stuff. Going into secondary school, it was a highly diverse secondary school. We were streamed, and the focus was very much on the curriculum. I don't remember in that school, my secondary school, doing any kind of Black History Month. I don't remember any kind of Black history. This is what I just don't remember. And then I moved for my A-levels, and I remember one year, the celebration of Black history wasn't something that we did in the classroom. I just remember there being almost like a performance, and it was just, you know, as I said, I've always felt like there's been a focus when it comes to Black history teaching around entertainment. And that's what I remember from school, just one year where a lot of my friends were dancing, singing, or whatever else for an assembly. As a teacher myself, in the schools I've worked in, I mean, in terms of me in my own classroom, I've been very lucky and fortunate that I've always been given a lot of creative license. I guess, you know, an element of just proving oneself almost helps. So I've been given a lot of autonomy. So one of the things that I did in the last school I was at in London was to had a whole module called Out of Africa. And that would always start with a trip to the Contemporary African Art Fair at Somerset House. So the first year I did that, I just reached out to the organizers and they said that was cool. So I took like 90 kids down there, and there are artists from or work represented from all 54 countries. So I did that for 4 years running. And then a lot of the curriculum came from the art that they were able to see, because a lot of the art is steeped in that idea around social justice and just kind of explaining the multiple narratives that we have on the continent. And then outside of that, you know, I just always made sure things like geography or science, there was an element within that would tackle those things. So teaching about the life of Wangari Maathai, who's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, also known for planting over 1 million trees in Kenya and starting the Greenbelt movement. Teaching about someone like that wasn't necessarily just about teaching Black history. It was about environmental issues. It was about challenging government. It was about the colonial legacy that was in Kenya when, you know, the British came over and started planting cash crops, and then we're continuing to take that over. So that was a lot of the work that I did in my classroom, which then I was able to work with other curriculum leads to kind of place those things into the classroom. So one of the assistant heads at the school asked for me to work alongside curriculum leads and just think about ways in which to just add a poignant person or an artist or, you know, some kind of musical element within topics or themes that we already had, to allow for us to be exploring these things without having to box it into Black history. And then another thing that I did last, like big major projects before I left the UK 2 years ago, was a whole project on social justice. And we looked at the idea of social justice from lots of different elements. So looking at disability rights, also looking at rights of the female, and then looking at other race issues, and then just trying to find this common theme within that, so we're not so obsessed with the label and we're actually thinking about the themes and the ways in which it enriches our life. I think that's the way I've always found it most successful to tackle issues like this, is how do we relate it to our own lives and to what we're doing every day and where we want to go in the future, so that when we're talking about, or when we're displaying the image of something like Brooke Ship to children, it's not just like, oh my God, how tragic, this happened back then and someone's family or ancestors went through this. It's like, how do we interrogate this as a crime against humanity, but how do we also interrogate this as a historical resource, and what is history and what is recorded history, and how do we understand the world if we don't have records like this? So these were the kind of things that I was doing, but going through school, I didn't have anything that did that for me. And then when I was teaching, I found myself doing it in the classroom, having children and parents talk about it, and then other members of staff asking for me to kind of share outwards. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, it just feels like a really important question for me, because I have come now to realise, after leaving my primary school and engaging with other people, that I had a really unique experience, and it's probably the thing that has made me passionate and want to get into this work. I went to a brilliant primary school called St Margaret's in South Manchester, and it was just so diverse. So even the street that we were on, there is a Gurdwara, there is a Hindu temple, there's a mosque, there's 2 different types of churches, and just around the corner there's a Hare Krishna centre. So we were visiting all of those places, meeting different types of people all the time. We celebrated Kwanzaa, we learned about the Windrush, we had a steel pans, we had Indian music, we used to go and sing at the RNCM and connect with the Kalinka band. So for me, it was always just like culture, 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 people from all around the world. And we had a great section in our library that was called the Black History section. And we had a group that was called the Black History Group, and they take the young people out of class, and we had our little folders, and we learned about people like Nanny of the Maroons and Marcus Garvey and Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth. And like you were saying, Charlene, it really gave me that sense of myself. And I'm also really grateful that I had my family that were very much about knowing our history and our heritage. My family's from Guyana in South America. So I was very aware of the colonial history and why my family was here, for instance, and why, for example, my granddad was Portuguese. Like, I understood all of that. And it really protected me. I didn't realize I needed that protection, but then when I got to high school, I did. And I was able to just say to people, nope, that's not true. This is where I'm from. That's what this is. And I remember actually standing up to a teacher in a history lesson. I was probably in year 8. I don't know what possessed me, but he was trying to tell us about the abolition of slavery. And he literally just talked about Wilberforce and this act of parliament. And I was like, no, I'm sorry. I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, are we not going to talk about the Haitian Revolution? Are we not going to talk about what happened in those islands, how they moved from this place to that place when it was abolished? Are we not going to talk about the Quakers in America? I was just like, what is going on? I remember I was just like, I will not let this listen continue. I will not let it continue. And you know, I was a young person that felt empowered to do that, but not every young person is going to have what I had, or then feel that they could stand up and confront a teacher. And the teacher, you know, he probably didn't know any better. That's what he was told that he needed to tell us in the class. So we don't want this project to be reactionary. We want to be at the front. We want to just be able to say, look, this is the history. This is our joint history. Here are some resources. As you were saying before, is it Dan that was talking earlier? We just want that consistency. We want to know, how do we talk about this in the classroom? How can we make sure that this is accessible for all young people? So yeah, that's why I asked that question. Just going to read what's in the chat. So Joe has said, this has been a brilliant session. Thank you, Joe. I'm based at Dylan Thompson Centre in Swansea. We host school visits, run creative writing sessions. Forgive me if I missed this, but will there be any specific resources to help support the poetic programme? Yes, there will be. Yeah, so that's all going to be coming out in March. I'm going to be developing a document that will have some activities in it for primary and secondary in terms of using poetry to engage with these wonderful themes. Yeah, and that's just someone joining us saying hello, so hi. Festus, I think it is. Okay, so that brings us to an end in terms of my questions. Has anyone got any questions that they want to throw to Charlene or Chantal or both of them at this point? Marcy, I know you made a comment about the Department of Education and wanting them to trial these resources. We'd love that if they champion these resources. We absolutely agree. Let's make it happen.
I think we need to persuade them that we need to decolonize the curriculum first, don't we? Make sure they're on board with that.
Any other questions or thoughts? No.
Say for anybody that is on the call or watches this in the future, even if you're not sure about signing up to the program, at least take a look at the sample materials, and if you've got the opportunity to use them with your young people, your young children, and just see what kind of reception you get, see how comfortable you feel with them, and then it might kind of inspire you to then, yeah, use all of the materials or sign up for the global part of the project.
Thank you. So Marcy's just popped a question in the chat. How many hours per week would you need to deliver these resources? So basically, when we had a chat with, I'll speak about primary school and then secondary. So when we had a chat with Charlene, we said that we imagine each module, each sub-module could take over a whole week.
Yeah.
So like each afternoon, there could be a thing. So each module there are 6 modules for Mother Africa, and each module we've got 5 or 6 lessons. So depending on the size of your class, the pace that you're used to, the kind of groundwork that you might have to do to get into the topic, it could be that you get through the modules in the way that we've said, in terms of like a week, or it could be that it takes 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We've really tried to make it so that it is adaptable. We didn't want to attach times to it because that felt strange, didn't it, Charlene?
Yeah, I did say allow that flexibility of, you know, whoever's going to be facilitating the materials to decide how long, and it will be based on your own class, your learners, again, like you said, the pace that they're at. So if you were able to get through a module in 1 week, that'd be brilliant. But if it's stretched over 2 weeks, that wouldn't necessarily be, you know, a negative or an issue in terms of what they're going to gain from those resources. So yeah, I would say don't put any time pressures on. It's not like, you know, you're attending sessions and you need to be there for 2 hours per week in order to get it out. I think it's more about the quality of the resources and how you deliver them, as opposed to how long or how quick you sort of work your way through them.
Yeah, but we have made sure that it is clear that there are learning objectives, there's wrap-up activities, it's clear how you go through the shape of it all. And with the Mother African modules, they are not episodic, so they're not linear. You could go for the science and maths one, you could go for the power of symbols, you could go for the fashion one, you can jumble it up. Whereas with Chantel, it's more linear, there's more of a structure there, isn't there? Because we're following that journey of discovery. So with the ones that you developed, Chantal, again, we had a similar vibe, didn't we? Like, we didn't want to put a strict time.
Yes, there's no times on any of the lessons, but they are kind of lessons in their entirety, which could at any point be split into 2 as such. And then for each of the 9 modules, there's a literacy-based lesson, an art-based lesson, and a history-based lesson. And it's like 1 lesson per module that could become more than 1 lesson with like follow-up ideas. So in the Mother Africa module for the English, it's kind of the lesson which is presented to you, which we've given to you, is almost like the pre-lesson to a week's unit, let's say, on debating. So it allows the children to do all of the gathering ideas, have some element of creating an argument, but not actually having to do a debate at the end. So it has all of the groundwork for it, all of the conversations, the discourse that they would need, those kind of activities to allow for metacognition. But you as the teacher, with the children showing encouragement, can decide, let's take this hook question and let's turn this into the motion of a debate, and then thinking about persuasive writing skills and writing speeches, and then necessarily performing the debate. But that isn't the actual entirety of the lesson that we've presented. So it's like that, even alongside the art. It might throw out a theme, an artist, a piece of work to look at with that responds to one of the themes from the modules. And then there's a space for the children to be able to reflect on that work, but then there is scope for you as the class, as the teacher, to decide to use what you've done in that lesson as inspiration for further lessons to create something, or even to just write critical kind of analysis of artwork, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was, I'm not sure if there's any amendments made in the primary resources, but there was only, I guess, 1 or 2 where there was an outcome at the end, such as a poem, and I did those sessions would need to have kind of be scaffolded, more scaffolded, for them to have not a really effective outcome. But all the others, yeah, stand alone in any order. I think I saw a question about using the resources in other settings, and from my understanding, very much so. I think that is the aim. It's not just for schools, it's for any educational youth club centres or, you know, community centres where you may have young people that definitely would benefit from this.
Yeah, thank you for that, Charlene. So we're going to have an event like this. So as mentioned, this is our first one, but they're going to be happening weekly, and we're going to be honing in on different topics. Next week is just a Meet the Learning Team event. So you'll get to hear more from myself and the 2 learning officers that I'm working with, and hopefully some guest speakers. I'm just trying to pin them down. But there is going to be an event in March where we talk specifically about access and alternative settings. So just making sure that we're all aware of how these can be adapted, how they can sit in spaces that don't feel like your average classroom. So that will be up on our website, and we'll be sharing that. So anyone that's attended today, we've got your email address via the Eventbrite link, so we'll be able to follow up and give you all of that information. Joanna said, sorry I've been late joining, this all sounds really interesting. I'm scoping out the programme for the Federation, I've just joined. Okay, no problem. Joanna, what we have been doing is recording this session, so we'll be able to pop it up on our YouTube and you can catch up, so that's not a worry. I'm just going to ask Mabel to put the link to the bursary form in there for you, because our deadline is the 31st of January. So if you do want to express an interest and feel that your school might be eligible for a bursary, then we really strongly encourage you to get that filled out as soon as possible. Do you have a question for us?
Hi everyone, nice to meet you.
Hiya.
No, I'm just really I've been reading up, I saw the link on the Leads for Learning link that came through to us at school, so I've just been reading up. I'm just really interested. I've just recently come back to the UK from living in Malawi for the last 11 years, and I'm really interested in kind of reimagining lots of different things connected to history, and I just think it's so relevant, so important. So yeah, I am actually head of early years in Senko at the school. Well, it's 2 schools and a daycare, but I'm kind of exploring it with a hope that I can kind of spread it through our federation if it'll work for us. So it's early stages, but yeah, thanks for all the info.
Oh, great. Well, yes, please. I hope that you do manage to spread the word and get the Federation on board. We'd love that. So I've just put again the links in the chat, so you can see how you can sign up to our bursary form. It's super quick, no longer than 10 minutes for you to tell us who you are and why you should be picked for a bursary. And we're going to try our best to give as many of them out as possible. And then I've also put a link back in so that you can see our fabulous resources that we've been talking about so passionately today. I'm just going to say a massive thank you to Charlene and Chantal for joining us this afternoon. They've done so much for us already, so it's just really encouraging that they're happy to come and speak with us and share their thinking, and hopefully get you on board with the resources a bit more and feel a bit more confident that you can use them in your classroom for yourself and with you and people. We'll be following up with some emails, with some links and all that kind of stuff. And as mentioned, we're going to get this recording up on our YouTube as soon as possible. So just make sure you check out The World Reimagined, follow us or go on Twitter. I'll just put our handle in there. Got to do all this stuff now, aren't you? So that's our Twitter, and also if you use that, you'll find us on Instagram. And yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there if we've not got any other questions. I'm sure we all want to go into our kitchens or our living rooms, get a cup of tea and just chill out or warm up even. It's still quite cold. I've definitely got a blanket wrapped around me, I'm not going to lie. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. It was lovely to speak to you, Chantal and Charlene. And I hope you all have a lovely week.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Let's wait for everyone to